The Hayes home looked perfect from the outside. Neatly trimmed hedges lined the walkway. A warm porch light flickered each evening, and the neighbors often whispered about how fortunate Olivia and Daniel were to have each other. Yet, within the walls of that picture-perfect house, silence had become Olivia's closest companion. The kind of silence that didn't soothe but instead pressed against her chest, reminding her of everything missing. When Olivia married Daniel, she had imagined endless conversations over late-night coffee, gentle laughter filling their kitchen, and the safety of knowing she was his first thought at the end of each day. For a while, those dreams had been real. He would surprise her with flowers, take her hand in the middle of crowded sidewalks, kiss her forehead when she wasn't expecting it. But somewhere between the promotions, the long office hours, and the never-ending phone calls, those small gestures faded. Now their dinners were marked by the sound of cutlery against plates rather than conversation. Daniel scrolled through his phone with a furrowed brow while Olivia sat across from him, sipping water slowly, hoping he'd look up. Hoping he'd notice the way she had styled her hair differently, or the new dress she'd bought weeks ago that still hung untouched in her closet. Most nights he didn't. He was too tired, too distracted, too busy chasing deadlines that stole the softness from their evenings. Loneliness crept in quietly, like a shadow that grew longer with each passing day. Olivia found herself lingering in the living room long after Daniel had gone to bed, staring at the television without registering the images, her mind drifting back to what they once had. She wanted to believe it was only a rough patch, that his love was still there, buried beneath exhaustion and ambition. But the ache inside her told another story, one she struggled to silence. That's when Ryan Mitchell began to appear more often. Daniel's best friend since college, Ryan had always been a part of their lives, dropping by for football games, barbecues, or the occasional glass of whiskey on the back porch. He was charming in ways Daniel no longer was. Attentive, quick to laugh, with a knack for making people feel like the only person in the room. At first, his presence was nothing more than a welcome distraction. When Daniel was too busy to attend neighborhood gatherings, Ryan would step in, ensuring Olivia wasn't left alone. He asked questions no one else seemed to care about. How her writing was going, whether she still painted on weekends, what book she'd left on the coffee table. Small things, yes, but each one carved out a space she hadn't realized was so empty. Olivia began to notice the little details about him too. The way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, how he leaned in when she spoke, giving her his full attention. She told herself it was innocent, that it was just friendship, the comfort of familiarity. Yet, somewhere deep inside, she felt the dangerous spark of being seen again, truly seen after so many months of invisibility. One evening, when Daniel cancelled yet another dinner plan with a quick text about a client meeting, Ryan stopped by with takeout. They sat together at the dining table that had grown so cold, the warm scent of food filling the air, laughter echoing in the spaces where silence once lived. Olivia found herself leaning into the sound of his voice, savoring the way her cheeks hurt from smiling, something she hadn't felt in too long. Later, when she stood at the sink rinsing dishes, she caught Ryan's gaze lingering on her. Not the casual glance of a friend, but something heavier, something that made her heart stumble. She looked away quickly, telling herself it was nothing, that she was imagining it. But when he reached for a plate, his hand brushed hers, lingering just a moment longer than it should have, the kind of touch that sent a shiver through her even as guilt clawed at her stomach. That night, Olivia lay awake beside Daniel, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing as he slept soundly, unaware. She stared at the ceiling, her thoughts tangled in confusion. She hadn't done anything wrong, not yet, but the line between loyalty and longing had begun to blur. And though she tried to push the feelings aside, she couldn't ignore the truth pressing down on her. She wanted to feel alive again. The silence in her marriage had left her vulnerable, and in Ryan's laughter, his attention, she had found something dangerously close to what she had been missing. The rain began one Thursday evening, steady at first and then pouring as though the sky itself couldn't contain its grief. Daniel was out of town on yet another business trip. His texts short and impersonal, promising to call but never finding the time. Olivia sat curled on the couch, the hum of the storm outside echoing the restlessness inside her. She hadn't expected company, but when the doorbell rang, her heart startled in her chest. It was Ryan, standing on her porch with his jacket damp from the rain, holding a small bag of groceries. "I thought you might need a few things," he said with an easy smile. His voice carried warmth that contrasted sharply with the cold drip of water trailing from his hair. She invited him in without hesitation, though part of her knew she shouldn't. The power flickered once, then went out completely, leaving them in the dim glow of candlelight. Olivia laughed nervously, the sound too loud in the quiet house, while Ryan lit a few more candles, the flames dancing across his face. They sat at the kitchen table, eating soup he had brought, steam rising between them. The storm raged outside, but in that moment, the world seemed small, intimate, reduced to the sound of rain and the warmth of two voices. Their conversation slipped easily into places she hadn't ventured in years. Ryan asked about her art, and she admitted she hadn't picked up a brush in months. He told her she was too talented to let that part of herself fade, that he still remembered a painting she had given Daniel years ago, how much it had impressed him. His words landed like a spark in a dark room, illuminating corners of her she thought had gone unseen. Olivia tried to remind herself that he was Daniel's best friend, that this was harmless, just kindness. But then Ryan reached across the table, his fingers brushing against hers, deliberate this time. The contact was brief but electric, sending a shiver through her. She pulled her hand back quickly, her pulse quickening, a war raging inside her between desire and guilt. The storm deepened, wind rattling the windows, thunder cracking above them. They moved to the living room, sitting closer now, the flicker of candlelight making shadows dance on the walls. Ryan's voice softened as he admitted, almost reluctantly, that he had noticed her sadness for a long time. He said he hated seeing her so alone, that she deserved more than cold dinners and silence. Olivia's throat tightened. She wanted to protest, to defend Daniel, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, tears stung her eyes, unspoken truths slipping through her guard. "I don't know how much longer I can do this," she whispered, her voice trembling. Ryan leaned closer, his hand resting gently on her shoulder, grounding her even as it sent her heart racing. The space between them shrank, each breath drawing them nearer to the edge of something forbidden. When his lips brushed hers, it was soft at first, tentative, as if waiting for her to pull away. But she didn't. Instead, she leaned in, the taste of rain still lingering on his skin, the warmth of his kiss unraveling months of loneliness in an instant. It was brief, but it was enough to shatter the fragile line she had sworn to keep. They pulled apart quickly, both breathing heavily, the weight of what they'd done hanging thick in the room. Olivia pressed her fingers to her lips, guilt flooding her even as her body ached for more. Ryan looked at her with eyes full of both apology and longing, and she couldn't bear the intensity of it. "Maybe I should go," he murmured, though neither of them moved. The silence that followed was louder than any storm. When he finally left, the echo of his presence lingered in every corner of the house. Olivia sat alone in the dim light, her heart pounding with the memory of his touch. She told herself it had been a mistake, that it wouldn't happen again. But deep down she knew the truth. A door had opened that could never truly be closed. The days that followed blurred into a dangerous rhythm. Quick phone calls in the middle of the day, excuses to meet for coffee, subtle touches exchanged when no one was looking. At family gatherings, she caught his gaze across the room, and the secret between them burned hotter with every stolen glance. Each moment carried both sweetness and shame, desire tangled tightly with fear. At night, lying beside Daniel, she felt the weight of betrayal pressing against her chest. She wanted to stop, to rewind time to before the rain, before the kiss. But each time Ryan's name lit up her phone, her resolve melted, replaced by the undeniable hunger to feel alive again. She was no longer just Daniel's wife. She was someone else too. Someone she barely recognized but couldn't resist becoming. Daniel had always trusted Olivia. He trusted her to manage their home when he was away, trusted her to be honest, to keep the vows they had exchanged beneath the summer sun all those years ago. But lately, something in her demeanor had changed. She smiled less when he walked into the room. Her phone seemed to vanish the moment he entered, and she often appeared distracted, as though part of her mind lived somewhere else. At first, he brushed it aside, blaming the distance on his work schedule. Guilt gnawed at him. He knew he hadn't been present, that his career had taken priority over the woman who once meant everything. But the unease grew stronger when he noticed small inconsistencies. A misplaced scarf in the back seat of Ryan's car. A faint scent of cologne on Olivia's sweater that didn't belong to him. And then, one evening when Olivia was in the shower, Daniel glanced at her phone and saw a single message left unlocked on the screen. "Can't stop thinking about last night." The words hit him like a blade. His chest tightened, his breath caught, and the room seemed to tilt around him. He didn't need to see the name to know who had written it. Ryan. His best friend. The man he had trusted like a brother. For 2 days Daniel said nothing. He watched Olivia carefully, searching her face for signs of guilt, waiting for her to come clean. But she didn't. She carried on with her routines, folding laundry, cooking dinner, smiling politely when he asked about her day. The silence between them was heavier than it had ever been, but she seemed blind to the storm brewing inside him. Finally, on a quiet Sunday evening, Daniel confronted her. She was setting the table when he placed her phone down in front of her, the message still glowing on the screen. Her hands froze, the color draining from her face as she looked at him. For a long moment neither spoke. The only sound was the tick of the clock on the wall, each second dragging like an eternity. "Is it true?" Daniel asked, his voice low, almost breaking. "Tell me I'm wrong, Olivia. Please." Her lips parted, but no words came. Tears welled in her eyes, and in her silence, he found the confirmation he dreaded. The argument that followed was raw and merciless. Daniel's voice cracked with anger and betrayal, demanding to know how long, demanding to know why. Olivia cried, trying to explain the loneliness, the emptiness, how she had reached for comfort in the wrong place. But every word seemed to cut him deeper. Ryan's name, spoken aloud, felt like poison between them. When the shouting stopped, what remained was devastation. Daniel walked out of the house that night, slamming the door behind him, leaving Olivia trembling in the kitchen. She slid to the floor, her sobs muffled by her hands, the reality of what she had destroyed crashing down around her. The days that followed blurred into silence once more, but this time it was different. It was not the silence of neglect, but of broken trust. Daniel slept in the guest room, speaking only when necessary, his eyes distant whenever they landed on her. Ryan disappeared entirely, no calls, no visits, no explanations. His absence was almost more painful than his presence had been, a reminder of the hollow choices she had made. Olivia tried to reach out to Daniel, to apologize, to beg for forgiveness, but the damage was done. Every gesture felt too small, too late. She saw the way he looked at her now, not with love, not even with anger, but with emptiness, as though she had become a stranger he no longer recognized. One evening, she found him packing a suitcase. He didn't shout, didn't accuse. He simply said, "I can't do this anymore," before walking out, leaving her surrounded by the echo of her own mistakes. The house that once held their laughter now stood quiet and cold, its walls carrying the weight of all the unspoken words. Olivia wandered from room to room, haunted by memories of what had been and what could never return. The warmth she had found in Ryan's arms had vanished, leaving only ashes and regret. Sometimes, late at night, she replayed the choices in her mind, wondering where she might have turned back, where she might have chosen differently. But time offered no mercy, only the reminder that betrayal begins with a whisper and ends in silence. In the end, Olivia was left with the very thing she had tried to escape: loneliness. Only now it was sharper, heavier, impossible to ignore. The silence that filled her home was no longer born from neglect, but from loss, and it would follow her long after the memories of Ryan's touch had faded.